Calvin Russell, 5-star wide receiver, picks Syracuse.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today's show is a celebratory one. I don't think that many people, myself included, thought that Calvin Russell would end up with Syracuse. Now the question is, can they sign him? But that's way down the road, so there's no reason to get into that right now. First off, congratulations to Fran Brown and his staff. They've earned that. Getting a 5-star recruit, no matter which staff you are, even if you're Ohio State or Oregon or Texas or Michigan, doesn't matter. It's impressive. But for you to go into Miami Northwestern, we're going to be talking about that, the political fallout from stealing a kid from Miami's backyard, from going out of your way to recruit in different pockets of the country, how that's worked for Fran Brown, and where the program is going. Like all of this together, there is no one section. It's a big ball of different things that are happening all at once. It's a magic elixir that's still being understood, if you will, because Syracuse recruiting is alive and well. Right now, by the 24/7 rankings, the Cuse have 20 on the board. So they're technically a top 20 class. They're the number 20 class. Did you think they were going to be at that spot at any point in Fran Brown's tenure, let alone one like right out of the gate? Everybody coming after them because they had a good year last year. Now they're circled. You know, it's different when you sneak up on it. There's no sneaking up anymore. So congrats to Syracuse on that too. So let's break down Calvin Russell, the whole political fallout and everything first. And then we'll talk a little bit later about what's next for Syracuse. So first things, 6'5", 185, 190, somewhere in that range. Basketball player. Yes, the Cuse has offered him to play hoops as well. And he's a kid that is very dynamic laterally despite his height. Wide receivers that make people miss in space are always coveted. But so are 6'5" guys. Calvin, I've stood next to him. He's a legit 6'5". He's a big dude. That is a football player that has the ability to go deep because he's certainly got a lot of speed. He's really good in 50-50 situations. And he's the rare guy that's, again, taller that will take a short slant, a screen, a hitch, something where he has basically the entire defense in front of him, make them miss and make big plays. Just, I'm better than you. Syracuse has done a great job with their passing attack, hence last year. I believe they finished number 1 or number 2 in a lot of the major passing stats, maybe even yards per game as well. But they didn't get kids like this out of high school. They just didn't. This is the kind of guy that, even though he's still got a long way to go, technically, like everybody coming out of high school, they'll find a way to use him his first year at Syracuse. I have no doubt of that. And I'm also very, very sure that they're also going to be able to get him in the lineup just to scare other teams because of his deep threat. So even if Calvin doesn't catch the football on a given play, his ability to just run routes, play hard, teams are going to have to be wary of him because of his size, back shoulder fades, jump balls, 7 route, 8 route, 9 route, any of that stuff. The safety's got to be wary where he's at. So that opens your running game, your quarterback run game, the other receivers, tight ends, screen game, everything else when you have deep threats like this. Again, especially if it's 6'5". So that's impressive. Now let's talk about the political side of this. This is where I come in, and this is my world. Miami Northwestern has long since been Florida State, Miami, to some extent Florida, and then a lot of the SEC schools, Georgia, Bama, Auburn, LSU, schools like that go to that program and have success over the last 30, 40 years. Syracuse, they may have gotten somebody, but they didn't get the top of the board guy. Miami Northwestern, for those who don't know, has won a bunch of titles, always has power four guys. It's a national program. Teddy Bridgewater is the head coach there, NFL quarterback. They've got a lot of things going on at Northwestern. Now the question is, can you go back into those waters? I don't know. This is where it's fun. Even somebody like myself who studies recruiting on a daily basis, I'm not sure what Syracuse could do to prove any more than getting Calvin Russell that they can recruit with anybody. He's a 5-star by 24/7 Sports. He was coveted by Michigan, by Oregon, by Miami, by Florida, Florida State, across the Big Ten and ACC and SEC. That's a starting point that you really don't have to go any further. I believe this is a young man that is going to have an impact in a lot of different ways, but his biggest, at least initially, until he starts catching passes for the Cuse, is the fact that kids in South Florida and throughout the Southeast are going to look at Syracuse even more than they already are. Calvin did it. Should I look at that school? Calvin did it. Should I at least take an unofficial visit? Calvin made a commitment to Syracuse. Should I take an OV there? Assuming Syracuse signs Calvin Russell, why should we not think that Syracuse will benefit with other recruits? I think they will. Probably even in this class, there's a possibility, depending on what they push for. For the record, they have 26 guys committed as I do this podcast. They may not take many more kids, but maybe they flip somebody else. They're certainly in the running. Tadarius Hughes, a kid that Florida State has committed, Miami Northwestern recruit, numerous other players in the greater Miami Public League, schools like American Heritage, Fort Lauderdale Dillard, Fort Lauderdale St. Thomas Aquinas, you name it, all those schools, those kids, they all know who Calvin is. Just that local area. It is inevitably going to be something that impacts them. And now I think it's time to transition to which players they get, what's going to happen next. We're going to talk about that next here on the Portal Podcast. We've all been there, logging on, and early on, you wait and you wait and wait for tickets to go on sale. Only lose your spot for a show you've been really dying to see. Live music should be all about going and making great memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Game Time comes into play for you. Game Time makes getting concert tickets easier, faster than it ever has been before. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to the show, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. I know when I was younger and I went to a lot of concerts, we didn't have the same kind of opportunities we do now. Some of my friends or myself would miss out on concerts, and it was unfortunate. But with Game Time, you can do something as simple as use your own phone, go in, look at the seat right on your phone, and find out where you would be to center stage in a matter of moments. It's really easy. You just type in the name of the band, or if it's a sporting event, the name of the baseball, football team, MMA, whatever it is, and there you go. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Got a lot of news about who's committing, when they're committing, what the impact will be, win-loss totals. We're getting ready to start a bunch of that stuff now that recruiting's close, not quite done. At the end of this next weekend, we're about a week away. Recruiting should slow down quite a bit, but then it's the win-loss totals, which recruits will be making the big impact to help you change which teams you think are going to win, help your fantasy teams for college football, all that stuff. Going to have at least one of those every day coming forward. And if you like videos of prospects, check out the YouTube page for Locked On the Portal. I've got a bunch of different stuff on there, from highlight videos, predictions, recruiting commitments on that as well. So let's talk Calvin Russell's impact and what's next for Syracuse. I got two main predictions. Number one, Fran Brown wasn't born yesterday. He knows he's going to have to recruit Calvin all the way through signing day. I'm going to get a bunch of questions in inbox from Syracuse fans, Miami fans, and everybody else. This is all you really need to know. Calvin Russell's recruitment was, is, and will be a national signing day deal. I've said that before on this show. I've said it before on Locked On Syracuse with Jackson Holzer. I've said it before on Locked On Canes with Alex Dono. Across the board, I've said it on my other show, Locked On Seminoles. It is going to be a national recruitment through signing day because he can't sign until December. With that being stated, if he made it this far to make a public commitment to the Cuse, they're obviously the team in the driver's seat. Not saying that somebody couldn't pull out the biggest surprise ever. Anything's possible. But right now, I think he'll sign with Syracuse. Why would I not? So, number 2, the impact, I think it will have a little bit this year, but the bigger impact for the Cuse will be in the next class. Again, they've got 26 kids in the boat. There's not a lot of room, just math here. They're going to get more recruits because of Calvin jumping on board, no doubt. But it's the class of 27, 28, 29. Maybe Syracuse starts doing things that will, I don't want to say just like destroy Miami and South Florida or something. Let's not be ridiculous. But maybe they get a big-time player out of South Florida every year that Miami really wanted. Even if you just get one every year, you improve your roster. For a history lesson, when Syracuse was really good about 20, 25 years ago, they got a lot of kids out of Florida. I don't know why that was. They always got some Syracuse players up there that go through like watching the game on TV, kid from New York, kid from New Jersey, Florida, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida. It was weird. Well, they're back to that, and it's at a higher rate. Like Syracuse would have like 10 kids from Florida or something like that on the roster back then. A lot of them were really good. But now I could see Syracuse having 15 to 20 kids from the state of Florida, with 3 or 4 of them being really high end. They really could. Here are a few numbers just to give you an idea of what they're doing now, and I think it'll improve overall. But again, they've got 26 total commits. They've got 7 from Florida. That's a really important number. They also have 6 from Pennsylvania. That surprised me a little bit too. They've got kids sprinkled in from all over. They've got a defensive lineman from Dallas South Oak Cliff. They've got a quarterback from Charlotte. They're not messing around. They got a kid from St. Francis, one of the best programs in the country in Baltimore. They're making noise in ways that I didn't see coming, but I think they're going to continue that. And although they're probably going to take a major step back this year, win-loss record-wise, see Jackson Holzer for full disclosure on why, but their schedule is ridiculous this year. Last year, it was much, much more manageable. Even if they go 6-6, 7-5, they're still going to be in pretty good shape because these kids know they're going to play. They know they're going to play. That's the difference. And to that, I think they're getting a lot of good depth pieces this year that'll play a little bit as freshmen or redshirt. But in 2027, like Syracuse football could take a step up and start competing with Florida State and Miami on a yearly basis, not just like every second, third, fourth year. If they have another class like the one they're having now, which I think they will, in 2027, that's when you know Syracuse football has dove all in with Fran Brown. And here's what I mean by that. This is the final point before I wrap up the show. If Syracuse football wants to be viable, not just for a couple of years, but for a long tenure, it's time to pony up. Or staff, back office staff, recruiting staff, all that stuff. You can't even remotely think about how can we cut corners here. If you're doing that as an athletic department, it's already over. Deep pockets. And I know I talk to Jackson Holzer every time I come on the show, Locked On Syracuse, and talk recruiting with him. He doesn't think their NIL is bad, but he doesn't think it's that great. They got to come up with it because what happens now, the history of business in general, let alone college athletics, once you have success, people will come in and pluck away your talent that helped you had success. that success is going to go away because your key personnel went over here. This person goes to UCLA. This one goes to Illinois. This one goes to the NFL. You got to pony up. If they do that, they can continue to get the Calvin Russells of the world and shoot up the charts. And why not? They won a lot of games last year just with a roster they tried to put together. I mean, not trying to pick on, but that was pretty miraculous. If they have more talent, more continuity with the system, why couldn't Syracuse be that team that takes that step up? But again, to do it, you got to pony up. It's going to be about this, dollar bills. If Syracuse does that, they're going to have a really good finish to 26, and then it would just continue on. But we'll know in December. There won't be any shying away from it. And I'll blame Jackson Holzer right now if it doesn't happen, just because he's an easy target. But they've got to spend a lot of money to keep personnel. Forget the roster for a second, to keep personnel at Syracuse. If not, it'll dissipate quickly. You must spend the money by market value, not by what you think you have, by market value. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your latest recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm Brian Smith. We will be talking more recruiting today. I'm actually going to do a show with Jackson Holzer tonight that will either be up tonight or in the morning on his show. Going to talk more about some of the commitments, programs across the country, Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame, Texas, you name it, all of that and more. So we will see you again soon on the Portal Podcast.